Hello friends, welcome back. Today is the second video for Redis. In our previous video, we have seen how to implement Redis in a Spring Boot application. Today we will be adding a database call and then I'll demonstrate how Redis will interact in between. Means for the first time when we retrieve the data from the database, it will store it into the Redis cache, and for all other consecutive calls, it won't call database but it will get the data from the Redis. So let's go through the code. Let's see the POM first for the dependencies. So this is the same Spring Boot project. If you see, we have this web dependency. We have this Spring Boot starter data Redis dependency. But now this is an additional dependency I have added. This is a Spring Boot starter cache. So it will use a cache. And then this is that Redis and dependency, which we won't need at this point. This was needed for the previous video. For this one, we'll be using this Spring Boot starter cache along with Spring Boot starter data Redis. And then we have Lombok that's not needed at all for this project, but it's good to have it. So we don't need to add getter and setters and toString methods. Apart from that, for database connectivity, we are using JPA. So Java Persistence API we will be using. So for that, we have this dependency Spring Boot Starter Data JPA. And then for the database, we have this H2 database, which is in-memory database, and it will be available at runtime. So instead of writing the data in Oracle or MySQL, I am using in-memory database. So this is it for POM respective, means for the dependency. Next one for the database connectivity. So this is that data source URL jdbch2 mem testdb. You can provide any other name. So this is the database URL. This is if you are using H2 database, you have to use this one as a class name org .h2.driver. So this is the database driver, and username I have added by default SA, and then password is blank. Spring JPA Hibernate DDL auto up or DDL auto is update, and then enable is true. This is to see the console. So with this one, we'll be checking the data in the H2 console. That's why this is there. And Spring cache type is Redis. So Spring cache, as I have added here this Spring dependency, Spring cache dependency. This one. So for that, I have saying that the cache will use Redis. Spring cache type will be Redis. So where it will store the Spring cache, it will store in Redis, and this is the Redis host and port. Okay, so let's first check once the Redis CLI if Redis is running or not. So if I say ping, it says pong, that means Redis is running. So I'll keep this CLI. Okay, I'll come back to the CLI again. Let's continue the code. So we don't need this Redis and YML for this video. Then what we have, let's come to this class, the main class, which is Redis POC application. For this video, we have to add this annotation enable caching. So we have to enable caching for this class, which is Redis POC application. I'll be back. So this is the main class Redis POC application. We have to annotate this main class with enable caching to use the caching thing. Next is the controller, or I can come to the controller later on. Let's first see that database connectivity. So for that we have this entity created. So this is the entity class. So entity class is product. It is implementing serializable, and then it has three parameters. One is long ID, which is kind of a PK of that table. Then we have a name and then a price. So this is the entity. And then we have a repository. So this is an interface product repository, which is extending JPA repository. And then the entity is product, and the ID is long. So I hope you all know JPA. So this is coming from JPA, these two classes. Just to implement JPA, we need an entity and a repository. Now let's come to the service class. So this is the Redis service class. We have implemented all these things in our last video. I won't go into those. In this video, I'll be just showing how to store a data into a JPA. So this is that save method through which I can, using the repository, I can store a product into the database. I can update a record into a database. So this is that update product. So I'm passing a ID, product ID, and then by product ID, I'm fetching the product from the database repository.findById, and then on that product, I am updating the name and the price from the current object, and then I am saving that product in the repository. For delete, I am basically passing an ID. Based on that ID, if that product is exist for that ID, then I am basically deleting by calling this repository.deleteById. And this is the main method which we'll be using today, where we have enabled this @cacheable uh, command. So that means what it will do, this is calling a repository. If you see inside this method, we are passing an ID, and then we are printing this line, fetching from DB for ID, whatever ID I'm passing, then product is null. Then I am getting that product from the repository.findById. I'm passing that ID, and it is coming from the database. Database means if you go here, this will call this one CRUD repository. So then I'm getting that product from the database, and then I am printing it that I got the data from the database, and then I'm returning it back to the controller. Okay, so I hope you understood this. And then I have add this annotation called @cacheable, and the value is products and key is ID. So what it will do, for the second time, if the same ID I pass to fetch the data from the database, say first time I fetch the data for a database or a ID 1, and then second time also I call this method. This method, instead of calling this repository.findId, first it will check, because of this annotation, first it will check in the cache that if this key is exist in the cache. If it is there, it will fetch the product from the cache and send it back instead of calling this repository.findId. So this way we won't be calling database again, and I'll be demonstrating it through this video. Okay, so this is I think it. Yes, this is it. Now let's test it, how it works. So first start this application. Let me start this application first. So application is starting now. So once the application will start, we can check our database, which is in-memory database, where we have to check with these connections, we have to check this one. The class name will be org-h2 driver. Sorry, this is the URL, database URL jdbc colon h2 colon mem.testdb. So I think server is up. Yep, application is up and running on h2 8282. Let's copy this one. So this is where the console will be. If my application is running on h2 sorry 8282, the console will be /h2 console. So I will, okay, so this is where I have this. So if you see, this is my JDBC URL and username password. So if you can use any other username password, test connection, so it's there. Now if you see, the product table is there. So this is that product table, means it's came because of this entity we have defined here, entity product. Let's see if it has any value. It should not have any value for the first time. Select star from product. So if you see, no rows, so there is no record. Now I can save couple of records, right? I can insert couple of records in the database table. Let's insert this record first in our database. This is the first record with ID 1 and product name is laptop, and inserted one record, updated. Then the next record, let's insert the next record. This is the next record. So this updated. Now let's see if we have two records or not. Product. So if you see, now I have two records in our database. First one is laptop, second one is phone. Now what I'll do, just clear the logs. Controller, let's go to the controller. So I will be invoking this method, get product ID. Okay, and then I'll show you here. First time it will print this text and this text because it will call the repository, which is our database. So let's hit this one. So for product ID 1, I am hitting it. So if you see, it has returned the laptop for product ID 1. Now if you see here, you see these two lines has been printed, fetching from DB for ID 1 and then product, this is product from DB. Now if I, okay, let's clear it again, clear this one again, and let's hit it again. This time it should not print those lines, but it will return a response back. So if you see, I got a response back, but it's not printing anything. That means this time it's got the data from the Redis cache, not from the database. But if I have another product, if I change it to 2, it will again print that. So now if I change that ID to 2, since we have the second record also, right? It will, first of all, it won't be in the cache and it will get it from the database. So let's send it. I got the response back to phone, and then if you see the logs, you see it has been printed again, means it is hitting the database because it was the first time the data was not in the cache. Now it has added in the cache because of this annotation, and I'll clear it and I'll hit it again, and I won't get it here because it's now getting it from the cache. Now both the records are in cache. So how many times I'll be hitting it, it won't go to the database. Isn't it cool? So this is what the benefits of caching. So now I can get the data many times. I'll call the service. As many time I want to hit it, I'll get the data back from the service, but it internally it won't call the database. It will, if you see, there is no database calls. Internally it will get the data from cache. Hope you understood. And if you like this video, please like this video and subscribe my channel and share it with your friends. Thank you. Have a nice day ahead. Bye.